Rain hammered the windshield of Ethan Hayes' old delivery truck, turning the world outside into a gray smear of water and shadow. It was late, too late for a Thursday night in a nowhere town like Willow Creek, Montana. Ethan, 42 and bone-tired, gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. The wipers squeaked with every swipe, barely keeping up with the downpour. He'd spent the day at his bakery, kneading dough that wouldn't rise right and tallying receipts that another month in the red, another night wondering why he bothered. He glanced at the passenger seat where a half-eaten peanut butter sandwich sat, Noah's handiwork from that morning. His 8-year-old son was the only thing keeping Ethan from letting the whole damn Tiambon crumble. Noah was back home now, probably curled up under that ratty dinosaur blanket, dreaming of spaceships, or whatever else filled a kid's head. Mrs. Callahan from next door was watching him, her TV blaring game shows loud enough to wake the dead. Ethan had promised he'd be back by 10. The dashboard clock blinked 9:38. Close enough if the rain didn't slow him down. 4 years ago, life had been different. Lila, his wife, used to sit in that passenger seat on nights like this, humming off-key to the radio, her laugh cutting through the static. She'd been the heart of the bakery. Her cinnamon rolls were the reason folks drove 20 miles just to stand in line. But then her heart gave out, literally, a murmur they didn't catch until it was too late. She collapsed in the kitchen one April morning, flour still on her hands, and that was it. Ethan hadn't baked a cinnamon roll since. Couldn't bring himself to try. The road stretched out empty ahead, a slick ribbon of asphalt winding through pine trees that loomed like ghosts in the storm. He turned the heat up, the vents rattling as they fought the damp chill seeping through the cracked window. His mind drifted to the bills piling up on the counter, the leaky roof he couldn't afford to fix, the way Noah's shoes were getting tight again. Then he saw it, a shadow slumped against the guardrail, too still to be a trick of the rain. Ethan hit the brakes hard. The truck fishtailed, tires skidding on wet pavement before it lurched to a stop. His pulse thumped in his ears. Could have been a deer, a bag of trash, anything. But it wasn't. It was a person. He fumbled with his seatbelt, grabbed the flashlight from the glove box, and shoved the door open. Rain stung his face as he stumbled out, boots splashing in puddles that soaked his jeans to the knees. "Hey!" he shouted, voice swallowed by the wind. The figure didn't move. Closer now, he saw it was a kid, maybe 16, 17, sprawled in the mud, soaked through. A boy from the look of the short, dark hair plastered to his head. His jacket was thin, torn at the elbow, and his hands were bare, knuckles scraped raw. Ethan dropped to one knee, shining the light. The kid's face was pale, lips faintly blue, alive, though chest rising and falling, shallow but there. "Hey kid, you hear me?" No answer. Ethan pressed 2 fingers to the boy's neck. Pulse was weak, but it was something. He didn't think twice, just slid his arms under the kid's shoulders and knees and lifted. The boy was light, too light, like he hadn't eaten in days. Ethan staggered back to the truck, rain pelting his back, and managed to wrestle the passenger door open. He laid the kid across the seat, shoving the sandwich aside, and cranked the heat to full blast. "Don't die on me," he muttered, rubbing his hands together to warm them before draping an old wool blanket from the back over the boy. "Come on, hang in there." The kid's fingers twitched, but his eyes stayed shut. Ethan's heart was still racing, adrenaline buzzing through him. He couldn't just leave him here. No phone signal this far out, no hospital for miles. Home was the only option. He climbed back into the driver's seat, wiping rain from his face, and glanced at the kid again. A beat-up backpack had been lying a few feet from where he'd found him, half buried in mud. Ethan had grabbed it without thinking. Now he unzipped it, hoping for a phone, a name, anything. No luck on the phone, just a soggy sketchbook, a couple of crumpled dollar bills, and a folded envelope sticking out from an inner pocket. The paper was damp but intact, sealed with a faint wax smudge. He turned it over, and his breath stopped cold. To Ethan, if you're reading this, the handwriting was hers, Lila's. That looping E, The way she dotted her eyes with tiny circles, he'd know it anywhere. His hands shook as he stared at it, rain drumming on the roof like a heartbeat. 4 years since she'd been gone, and here she was, reaching out from a muddy backpack on a night he'd almost driven past. What the hell was this? He tore the envelope open, careful not to rip the paper more than the rain already had. The words spilled out in her familiar scrawl. "Ethan, if this found you, it's not by chance. His name is Lucas. He's 17, and he's more than just a kid who needs help. I've been writing to him for years. 5 to be exact. He doesn't know me, not really, but he's a light I couldn't keep to myself. If he's with you now, please don't turn him away. You're the only one I'd trust with this. I'm sorry I never told you. I love you, always. Lila." Ethan read it twice, then a third time, the words blurring as water dripped from his hair onto the page. Lucas, the kid shivering under the blanket. Lila had known him, written to him for 5 years, before she died, during all those quiet nights when Ethan thought she was just scribbling recipes or notes to Noah. He looked at the boy again, searching his face for something, anything, that made sense. Nothing did. Not yet. The truck's engine rumbled as he shifted into gear, tires spinning briefly before catching traction. He didn't know what he was driving toward anymore, just that he couldn't stop now. The rain kept falling, relentless, but inside the cab something had shifted. A crack in the silence Ethan had lived in for too long. He tightened his grip on the wheel and muttered under his breath, "All right, Lila, you've got my attention." The rain hadn't let up by the time Ethan pulled into the gravel lot behind his bakery. The truck's headlights cut through the dark, illuminating the faded sign, Hayes Hearth Bakery, swinging crookedly in the wind. He killed the engine and sat there for a moment, the letter still clutched in his hand, Lila's words looping through his head like a song he couldn't shake. Lucas, the kid, sprawled across the passenger seat, hadn't stirred. His breathing was steadier now, though, the blue tinge fading from his lips as the heater hummed its quiet battle against the cold. Ethan glanced at the clock. 10:14 p.m. Noah would be asleep by now. Mrs. Callahan probably dozing in front of her TV. He couldn't call anyone, not with the storm knocking out cell service. The kid needed a bed, dry clothes, something warm in his stomach. Ethan's place was upstairs, a cramped apartment above the bakery with creaky floors and a couch that sagged in the middle. It wasn't much, but it'd do. He climbed out, circled to the passenger side, and eased Lucas out of the truck. The boy was still limp, head lolling against Ethan's shoulder as he carried him up the narrow back stairs. Rain soaked through Ethan's jacket again, but he barely noticed. His mind was stuck on that letter. 5 years. Lila had been writing to this kid, Lucas, for 5 years, and Ethan hadn't had a clue. What else had she kept from him? What else had he missed? Inside, the apartment smelled like yeast and old coffee, a faint trace of the bakery below seeping through the floorboards. Ethan kicked the door shut behind him and laid Lucas on the couch, peeling off the kid's wet jacket and swapping the damp blanket for a thick quilt Lila's mom had made years back. He grabbed a towel from the bathroom, rubbed it over Lucas's hair to dry it some, then stood back, hands on his hips. The boy looked small under the quilt, swallowed up by it, like he didn't belong in a world this rough. Ethan sank into the armchair across from him, the letter still in his pocket, crinkling as he moved. He pulled it out again, smoothing it against his knee. "He's a light I couldn't keep to myself," Lila had written. What did that even mean? He thought back to those last years with her, how she'd sit at the kitchen table late at night, pen in hand, a soft smile on her face. He'd assumed she was planning menus or writing to her sister in Boise. Never once had he asked. Never once had she offered. A groan from the couch snapped him out of it. Lucas shifted, eyes fluttering open, hazy and unfocused. He bolted upright, the quilt sliding off his shoulders, and stared at Ethan like a cornered animal. Where am I? His voice was rough, cracked from the cold. Easy, Ethan said, raising a hand. You're safe. I found you on the road, passed out in the rain. Brought you here, my place, above the bakery in Willow Creek. I'm Ethan Hayes. Lucas blinked, breathing fast, his hands gripping the edge of the couch. You went through my stuff, he said, eyes flicking to the backpack on the floor. Ethan nodded, no point in lying. Had to. You were out cold. Found a letter in there. Said your name's Lucas, that right? The kid tensed, jaw tightening. Yeah? So what? So it was from my wife, Lila. She's been gone 4 years, but she wrote it like she knew you'd end up here. Ethan pulled the letter from his pocket and held it up, not accusing, just stating the fact. You want to tell me how that works? Lucas stared at the paper, something shifting behind his eyes. Fear, maybe, or recognition? I don't know, he said finally, voice quieter now. She wrote to me. A lot. Started when I was 12, back in the group home in Billings. Never met her, though. Didn't even know her last name, till now. Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. 5 years, she said. What'd she write about? Lucas shrugged, looking away. Stuff. Books she liked. How to make bread. Said I should keep trying even when things sucked. I thought she was just some lady who felt sorry for me. He paused, then added, softer. She didn't, though. Feel sorry, she just cared. Ethan's chest tightened. That sounded like Lila. Always seeing the good in people, even the ones she'd never laid eyes on. But why this kid? Why keep it from him? He wanted to ask more, but the door buzzer downstairs cut him off, a sharp buzz that echoed through the quiet. Lucas flinched. Ethan stood, frowning. Stay put, he said, heading for the stairs. The bakery was closed, had been for hours. Who'd be out in this mess? He flicked on the porch light and opened the back door. Harper Quinn stood there, rain dripping off her yellow slicker, a cardboard box of coffee filters tucked under one arm. She was 35, wiry, with a grin that showed up even when it shouldn't. She ran deliveries for the diner down the street and stopped by Ethan's place a couple times a week for flour or sugar, always with some story about a trucker she'd out-talked. Ethan Hayes, you look like you've seen a ghost, she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invite. Heard from Mrs. Callahan you pulled some kid off the road, that true? Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, he's upstairs, passed out in the rain, half dead. I couldn't just leave him. Harper set the box on the counter, shaking water from her hair. You're a softie, you know that? Most folks would have called the cops and kept driving. She tilted her head, studying him. He okay? Getting there. Cold, hungry, scared. Nothing a hot meal won't fix. Ethan hesitated, then added, He had a letter from Lila. Harper's grin faltered, just for a second. Lila? Your Lila? Her voice was casual, but her eyes sharpened, like she was piecing something together. Yeah, said she'd been writing to him for years. Called him Lucas. You ever hear her mention that name? Harper shook her head, too quick maybe. Nope, never. She was always scribbling something, though. You know how she was. Loved her little secrets. She crossed her arms, glancing toward the stairs. He up there now? Ethan nodded. Just woke up. I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Well, don't let me stop you. Harper flashed that grin again, but it didn't reach her eyes this time. Brought you those filters you asked for last week. Figured I'd drop 'em off before the road washes out. You need anything else? Nah, I'm good, thanks, Harper. Ethan walked her back to the door, watching as she stepped into the rain, her slicker disappearing into the dark. Something about the way she'd looked at him stuck with him. Too curious, too careful. Back upstairs, Lucas was still on the couch, staring at the quilt like it might bite him. Who was that? He asked. Harper, She runs deliveries around town. Nosy but harmless. Ethan sat down again, picking up the letter. You said Lila wrote you about bread. She ever say why? Lucas shook his head. Not really. Just that it mattered, making something with your hands. She sent me a recipe once for these star-shaped cookies. Said they were her favorite. He looked up, hesitant. I kept it. Never made 'em though. Ethan smiled, faint and bittersweet. She loved those. Baked 'em every Christmas. Noah still asks for them sometimes. He folded the letter, tucking it back in his pocket. You're staying here tonight, Lucas. Storm's too bad to figure anything else out. We'll talk more in the morning. Lucas didn't argue, just pulled the quilt tighter. Ethan stood, heading to the kitchen to heat up some soup. His hands moved on autopilot. Can opener, pot, stove. But his mind was racing. Lila's handwriting, her voice in those words had cracked something open inside him, and Harper's quick nope about Lucas. It didn't sit right. He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about a kid in the rain. There was more coming, whether he was ready for it or not. The next morning broke gray and heavy. The rain reduced to a drizzle that tapped against the apartment's windows like a restless finger. Ethan woke early, the couch's lumpy springs digging into his back. He'd given Lucas his bed last night, couldn't stomach the idea of the kids sleeping on that sagging thing after whatever he'd been through. Noah was still out cold in his little room down the hall, dinosaur blanket pulled up to his chin. Ethan rubbed his eyes, the ache of too little sleep settling into his bones, and shuffled to the kitchen. Lucas was already up, sitting at the table with his hands wrapped around a chipped mug of instant coffee Ethan hadn't even heard him make. The kid looked better than he had last night, color back in his cheeks, dark hair still damp but not plastered to his skull anymore. He was wearing one of Ethan's old flannel shirts, sleeves rolled up past his skinny wrists. It hung on him like a tent, but it was dry, and that was something. "Morning," Ethan said, voice rough from sleep. He grabbed a mug for himself, pouring water from the kettle still warm on the stove. "Sleep okay?" Lucas nodded. "Barely. Yeah, thanks. For the bed, I mean." "Don't mention it." Ethan sat across from him, stirring the coffee until the granules dissolved. The silence stretched out, not uncomfortable, but thick with things unsaid. He studied Lucas. The sharp angle of his jaw, the way his eyes flicked to the window every few seconds, like he was waiting for something to come crashing through. "You hungry?" "Kind of," Lucas shrugged, then added, "I can help though, if you've got stuff to make breakfast." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You cook?" "Not really, but Lila, she wrote about it a lot. Said it's just following steps, like building something." His voice softened. "I read her letters so many times I memorized half of them." That hit Ethan somewhere deep, a pang he couldn't name. He stood, pulling flour and eggs from the pantry. "All right then, pancakes. Easy enough to start with. You're on mixing duty." They worked in quiet rhythm, Ethan measuring, Lucas stirring the batter with a wooden spoon, the clink of the bowl filling the small space. It wasn't much, just flour and water and a little sugar, but it felt like more, like a thread tying them to Lila, thin but real. Noah stumbled in halfway through, hair a wild mess, eyes lighting up at the sight of pancakes sizzling on the griddle. "Who's he?" Noah asked, climbing onto a chair and pointing at Lucas, with a blunt honesty only an 8-year-old could pull off. "Lucas," Ethan said, flipping a pancake. "Found him in the rain last night. He's staying for a bit." Noah tilted his head, sizing Lucas up. "You like dinosaurs?" Lucas cracked a small smile, the first Ethan had seen. "Used to. Had a T-Rex model I built when I was your age. Lost it though." "I've got a Stegosaurus," Noah said, like that settled it. "You can see it later if you want." "Deal," Lucas replied, and just like that, the air in the room lightened. They ate at the table, Noah chattering about school and a kid named Timmy who ate glue, Lucas nodding along, Ethan watching it all unfold. It was strange having someone new here, someone tied to Lila in a way he didn't understand yet. After breakfast, Noah ran off to dig out his dinosaur toys, leaving Ethan and Lucas with the dishes. So, Ethan started, scrubbing a plate. "You said Lila sent you books. What else?" Lucas dried a fork, slow and careful. "Sketch pads, mostly. I like drawing. Still do. She'd write about her garden sometimes, or this bakery. She made these star cookies every winter. Sent me the recipe once with a little drawing of one on the envelope. I kept it in my bag till it fell apart." Ethan's hands stilled in the soapy water. Those cookies. Lila's pride, crisp and buttery, dusted with sugar that sparkled like snow. He hadn't thought about them in years. Hadn't let himself. "She loved those," he said quietly. "Made 'em for Noah's first Christmas. He was too little to eat 'em, but she didn't care." Lucas looked at him, something soft in his eyes. "She talked about you sometimes, not by name. Just my husband. Said you were stubborn but good, that you'd fix anything, even if it took you forever." Ethan laughed, short and rough. "Sounds about right." He rinsed the last plate, setting it on the rack. "You ever write her back?" "Yeah, told her about the group home, how I wanted to get out, maybe learn to bake or draw for real. She'd always answer, every month, like clockwork. Then one day they stopped. I didn't know why till I found an old letter last week. Had her full name on it, Lila Hayes. Looked her up, saw she'd, died." Lucas's voice cracked just a little. "Came here to see where she'd been, I guess. Didn't plan on passing out in a ditch." Ethan leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "She never told me about you, not a word. I don't get it." Lucas shrugged. "Maybe she didn't want you to feel like you had to fix me too." Before Ethan could answer, the back door buzzed again. Harper this time, stomping in with her usual energy, a bag of apples slung over her shoulder. "Morning, Hayes. Thought I'd drop these off. Diner didn't need 'em, and I figured you could use the stock." She paused, spotting Lucas at the sink. "Well, hey there. You're the road rescue, huh?" "Lucas," he said, nodding stiffly. "Harper," she shot back, setting the apples down. "You sticking around, Lucas?" "For now," Ethan answered for him. "He's helping out today. You staying?" "Nah, got deliveries to run, but I'll swing by later, check on that leaky roof you keep ignoring." Harper grinned, but her eyes lingered on Lucas a beat too long, sharp and searching. Ethan walked her out, the drizzle cold against his face. "You know something about him?" he asked, keeping his voice low. Harper turned, rain beating on her jacket. "Who, Lucas?" "Nope, just curious. Kid shows up with a letter from Lila?" "That's wild, right?" She smiled, but it didn't land right. Too tight around the edges. "Yeah," Ethan said, watching her go. "Wild." Back inside, Lucas was wiping down the counter, Noah chattering beside him about Stegosaurus plates. Ethan grabbed a broom, but his mind was elsewhere. Harper's quick denial, the way she'd looked at Lucas, it gnawed at him. Later, after Noah dragged Lucas off to see his toys, Ethan slipped downstairs to the bakery's basement. It was a mess. Boxes of old receipts, broken mixers, a life's worth of junk. He hadn't been down here in months, but something tugged at him, a hunch he couldn't shake. He found it under a stack of flour sacks, a wooden box, small and scratched, with Lila's initials carved into the lid. Inside were dozens of letters, yellowed at the edges, all addressed to Lucas in her careful script. Ethan's breath caught as he flipped through them. Years of words he'd never seen, stories he'd never heard. She'd written about him, about Noah, about the bakery's slow days and the way the sun hit the counter just right in winter. She'd poured herself into these pages, and he'd missed it all. The last letter was different, shorter, dated a week before she died. "Lucas, if you ever find Ethan, tell him I'm sorry. I kept you separate because I thought it was kinder. But you're his light, too, if he'll let you be. Don't give up on him. Or yourself. Ethan's hands shook as he read it, the words sinking in like stones. He sat there on the cold floor, surrounded by dust and ghosts, trying to make sense of a woman he thought he'd known completely. Upstairs he could hear Noah laughing, Lucas's quieter voice answering, life moving forward, even when he wasn't ready. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Harper's odd glance flickered like a warning he couldn't yet read. The bakery smelled like warm sugar and apples by mid-afternoon, a rare good day. Ethan had Lucas and Noah upstairs rolling dough for a pie, the kid's hands surprisingly steady as he followed Ethan's instructions. Laughter drifted down through the floorboards, Noah's high-pitched giggle mixing with Lucas's quieter chuckles. It was a sound Ethan hadn't heard in years, not since Lila used to chase Noah around with flour-dusted fingers. He stood behind the counter, wiping it down for the third time, trying to ignore the wooden box of letters sitting by the register. He hadn't told Lucas about them yet. Didn't know how. The bell above the door jangled and Harper breezed in, shaking drizzle from her hair. She carried a thermos this time, steam curling from the lid as she set it down. Made some cider at the diner. Too much, as usual. Thought you'd want a taste. Ethan nodded, grabbing a couple of mugs. Thanks, smells good. He poured, the cinnamon hitting him like a memory of Lila's kitchen. Harper leaned against the counter, watching him with that easy grin, but her eyes kept darting to the stairs. Sounds like a party up there, she said, sipping her cider. Kids fitting in, huh? Yeah, Lucas said. He's good with Noah. Better than I expected. Ethan took a drink, the warmth settling into his chest. Been teaching him some basics. He's got a knack for it. Harper's grin softened. Lila'd be proud. She always had a thing for strays. Human ones, I mean. Ethan's hand paused on the mug. You knew her better than you let on, didn't you? Her eyes flicked to his, quick and sharp, then away. We were friends, sure. She'd talk about you sometimes, when I'd pick up orders. That's all. Bullshit, Ethan said, voice low but firm. You've been weird since Lucas showed up, looking at him like you're waiting for something. What's going on, Harper? She set her mug down, slow and deliberate, like she was buying time. You're reading too much into it, Ethan. I'm just nosy. You know me. I don't, though. Not really. He stepped closer, the counter between them feeling smaller. You knew about Lucas. Before I said a word, you knew. Harper's jaw tightened, and for a second she didn't move. Then she sighed, long and heavy, like she'd been holding it in for years. All right, fine. You want to do this now? Let's do it. She reached into her jacket, pulled out a folded letter, worn, edges curling, and slid it across the counter. Read that. Then we'll talk. Ethan's pulse kicked up as he unfolded it. Not Lila's handwriting this time, someone else's, tighter, less careful. Lila, I can't keep pretending he doesn't exist. Lucas is mine and I walked away. You're the only one who knows. If I don't make it back, find him. Give him to Ethan. He's steady enough for both of us. I'm sorry I left you with this. H. The date at the top was 10 years old. He looked up, throat dry. You wrote this? Harper nodded, her face pale but set. Yeah. 10 years ago, when I was a mess. Gave it to Lila before I split town. Didn't think she'd keep it or do anything with it. Lucas is yours? Ethan's voice cracked, disbelief warring with the pieces snapping into place. My son, she said, barely above a whisper. Had him when I was 18. Couldn't handle it. Drugs, bad boyfriend, the works. Left him with a neighbor, took off. Lila tracked him down years later, after she found out from me. She didn't tell you because I begged her not to. Said I'd fix it myself someday. Ethan's hands shook as he gripped the letter. She's your sister, isn't she? That's why she cared so much. Harper's eyes widened, then softened. Yeah, older sister by 3 years. We didn't talk after I left. Too much baggage. But she never gave up on me, or him. The floorboards creaked behind them. Ethan turned, and there was Lucas, standing at the bottom of the stairs, flour on his hands, eyes wide and glassy. He'd heard it all. "You're my mom?" His voice was raw, trembling. Harper flinched, like the words were a slap. "Lucas, You left me," he cut in, stepping forward. "I was in that shithole group home, and you didn't even look back. Lila, she wrote me, cared about me. You didn't." "I couldn't," Harper said, voice breaking. "I was wrecked, barely keeping myself alive. I thought you'd be better off without me." Lucas laughed, sharp and bitter. "Better off? I had nothing, no one, until her." He pointed at the box of Lila's letters, tears spilling over now. "She was more a mom than you ever were." Ethan stepped between them, hands up. "Lucas, wait!" "No," Lucas snapped, shoving past him. "I'm done." He grabbed his backpack from the couch upstairs, still damp from the rain, and bolted out the back door into the drizzle. The slam echoed through the bakery, leaving silence in its wake. Harper sank onto a stool, head in her hands. "I fucked this up. I knew I would." Ethan stared at her, anger boiling under his skin. "You should have told me, years ago when Lila was still here. Why the hell didn't you?" "Because I was ashamed," she shot back, looking up with red-rimmed eyes. "Lila wanted me to come clean, but I couldn't face it. Face you or him. She took it on herself instead. Wrote him, kept him going, hoped you'd find him someday. I just watched from the sidelines." Ethan's fists clenched. "She carried that for you, and you let her." "I know," Harper whispered. "I've hated myself for it every day since she died." He turned away, staring out the window at the rain streaking the glass. Lucas was out there, hurt and running, and Ethan felt it, the same ache he'd carried since Lila's heart stopped. But this time it wasn't just grief. It was fury, confusion, and something else he couldn't name. Lila had trusted him with this, her sister's son, her secret. And he'd almost missed it. "We've got to find him," he said finally, grabbing his jacket. "He's not disappearing again." Harper stood, wiping her face. "I'm coming with you. I owe him that much." Ethan didn't argue. He didn't have the energy to. They stepped out into the wet, gray afternoon, the weight of the truth pressing down like the clouds overhead. Lila's light. Lucas was out there, and Ethan wasn't letting it flicker out. Not this time. The rain had thickened again, a steady sheet that blurred the edges of Willow Creek as Ethan and Harper climbed into his truck. The engine sputtered before catching, the wipers slapping water off the windshield in a frantic rhythm. Ethan's hands gripped the wheel tight, knuckles white, his mind racing as fast as his pulse. Lucas was out there, angry, lost, carrying a hurt Ethan could feel in his own chest. Harper sat beside him, silent, her hands twisted in her lap like she was holding herself together by threads. "Where would he go?" Ethan asked, voice rough over the hum of the engine. "He doesn't know this town." Harper stared out the window, rain streaking her reflection. "He's not thinking straight, probably just running blind. There's a park off Main, benches, trees. Kids go there when they've got nowhere else." Ethan nodded, turning onto the road. The streets were empty, the storm keeping everyone inside, but he couldn't shake the image of Lucas alone in it, 17 and breaking under a truth too heavy for anyone to carry. He thought of Lila, how she'd have known what to say, how she'd have softened this mess with a few quiet words. He didn't have her grace, but he had something. Stubbornness, maybe, or just a refusal to let this kid slip away like she had. The park came into view, a soggy patch of green hemmed in by pines. Ethan slowed, scanning the shadows, until he spotted him. Lucas, hunched on a bench under a dripping tree, backpack clutched to his chest. The truck rolled to a stop, and Ethan was out before Harper could unbuckle, boots splashing through puddles as he crossed the grass. "Lucas!" he called, voice cutting through the rain. The kid's head jerked up, eyes wide and red, but he didn't move. Ethan slowed as he got closer, hands out like he was approaching something wild. "Hey, you're soaked again. Come back with us." Lucas shook his head, voice trembling. "Why? So she can lie to me some more? So you can pretend this fixes everything?" Ethan crouched in front of him, rain dripping off his cap. "No pretending. This is a mess. I get it. But you don't have to run from it. Not from me." Lucas looked away, jaw tight, tears mixing with the wet on his face. "She didn't want me. Lila did. But she's gone. What's left?" Harper stepped up then, tentative, her slicker hood fallen back. "Me," she said, voice breaking. "I'm what's left, Lucas, and I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I was a coward back then. I thought leaving you was better than screwing you up worse." "You didn't even try," he spat, standing now, fists clenched. "Lila tried. She wrote me, cared about me, when you couldn't be bothered." "I know," Harper said, stepping closer despite the flinch in his shoulders. "She was better than me, always was. She found you when I couldn't face you. But I've been here, in this shitty little town, watching from a distance, hoping you'd turn out okay. I didn't know how to fix what I broke." Ethan stood too, rain soaking through his jacket. "She's not lying now, Lucas, and neither am I. Lila wanted you here, with me, with us. She saw something in you, same as she saw in me when I was falling apart. You don't have to forgive her or stay, but you've got a place if you want it." Lucas's breath hitched, his hands loosening around the backpack. "Why do you care? You don't even know me." "Because she did," Ethan said simply, "and because I'm starting to. You're not just her light. You're ours too, if you'll let us in." The rain fell softer now, a hush settling over them. Lucas looked from Ethan to Harper, something crumbling in his eyes. Not the anger, but the wall holding it up. He sank back onto the bench, shoulders slumping, and Harper knelt beside him, not touching, just there. "I don't know how to do this," he whispered. "Neither do I," she said. "But I'll try. For you. For her." Ethan reached out, resting a hand on Lucas's shoulder. "Come home, kid. We'll figure it out." Lucas nodded, slow and shaky, and let Ethan pull him up. The three of them walked back to the truck, drenched and quiet, but together. The ride home was wordless, the heater blasting, the weight of the day sinking in like the rain into the earth. Back at the apartment, Noah was waiting, perched on the couch with his stegosaurus in hand. "You're back," he chirped, then frowned at their wet clothes. "You look like drowned rats." Lucas managed a faint laugh, and it broke the tension like sunlight through clouds. Ethan sent him to change, then turned to Harper. "You sticking around?" She nodded, peeling off her slicker. "Yeah, if that's okay." "It is," he said, and meant it. Later, after Noah was in bed, the three of them stood in the bakery kitchen. Ethan pulled out Lila's star cookie recipe, yellowed paper, her handwriting looping across it, and set it on the counter. "Thought we could give these a shot," he said, "together." Lucas hesitated, then nodded. Harper tied on an apron, her hands trembling just a little. They measured flour, cut butter, shaped dough into stars. Clumsy at first, then smoother, like they were finding a rhythm. The oven hummed, filling the room with that old, sweet warmth Ethan hadn't felt since Lila was alive. When the cookies came out, golden and crisp, Noah snuck down in his pajamas, grabbing one before Ethan could stop him. "They're good," he declared, crumbs on his chin, and Lucas smiled. Really smiled, for the first time. Days turned to weeks. Lucas stayed, sleeping in the spare room Ethan cleared out, learning the bakery's ins and outs. He had a knack for it, kneading dough with a focus Ethan hadn't seen in himself in years. Harper was there too, not every day, but enough, rebuilding something with Lucas one awkward conversation at a time. The bakery picked up. Lucas tweaked a bread recipe, added a hint of honey, and suddenly folks were lining up again, whispering about the new kid with a magic touch. One night after closing, Ethan sat at the kitchen table, a pen in hand and Lila's box of letters beside him. Lucas was sketching in the corner, Harper washing dishes, Noah asleep upstairs. Ethan wrote, not to Lila this time, but to himself. She gave us this. Not just the bakery, not just the cookies. Us. A family we didn't see coming. I'm not hiding anymore. He folded the paper, tucked it into the box, and looked up at the room. Alive, messy, real. Lucas glanced over, catching his eye. "You okay?" "Yeah," Ethan said, voice steady. "You?" Lucas nodded. A small, "Sure thing. Getting there." Harper dried her hands, joining them at the table. "We're a weird bunch, huh?" Ethan laughed, soft and true. "Lila'd love it." Outside, the rain had stopped, the sky clear for once, stars pricking through the dark. The bakery stood quiet, its sign still crooked but glowing faintly in the night. It wasn't what it used to be. Not Lila's anymore. Not Ethan's alone. It was theirs, built from ashes and dough and a love that refused to fade. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be.